when you follow your own disappearance, many things shall become apparent to you. When I say disappearance, that means the moment where you have confronted all form to the degree that you are the presence of the observer, no longer left to the bounds of the object. When you realize that you are a living being that can observe yourself in very deep existential ways, you smile very knowingly without knowing a single thing. Because it is not arrogance when there is an alignment that is more natural than existence questioning itself. When we wonder if we are here, or when we wonder of other places, where else could our wonder be missing? Or what else is there that we may wonder about but we're simply not aware of? The most important note that you can take away is that from any act, there's always a moment in which your awareness to the moment fluctuates. There's some people who first believe things are only moving. Then they realize they can't just avoid just things moving, so they say, okay, things are still. And then after they say things are still, they say, okay, but things are moving. And so you see that movement and stillness occupy your mind to the degree that you do not have control over where your awareness originated from, simply because the concept of control does not need to be present. In other words, I don't need to call the roots of the tree the roots. Do you understand this? When you acknowledge yourself through a balanced observance of self, your own sense of inspiration finds you. In other words, think of every inspiring person you know, and just realize for a second why were they inspirational to you? Were they doing it for you? Or is it that you have such a real understanding of what they were doing that you truly understood the value of that human being? Unfortunately, nowadays we find ourselves not having a lot of value for other human beings because we are questioning the value of ourselves. When you feel incomplete, you're never seeing other people's completions, and you're definitely not seeing your own. And we don't want to also tell you got to be complete, because when you run to be complete, you're not handling the incomplete aspect of it. So your awareness needs to show itself to you in ways where limitation does not need to manifest for you. It simply doesn't. In other words, think of every problem and just be aware that before you thought of that problem, your attention was on something else, just like a spotlight. And so the spotlight of your attention redefines you every moment where you observe a sense of change. What really inspires me from Vedic texts or any ancient text is simply the inspiration for them to leave something behind. And what they left behind, what was its value? And so you wonder, what does value really mean in this world? Is value something that something has? Or is value an observance of all things? For now, many of our great ideas lie dormant, chained to our lack of attention to how else those ideas could be perceived. Because once you observe your ideas in different states of being, you cannot be ignorant when you see the vastness of all that is. Simple stuff, but very complex in regards to application. So if you are a being, if you at first acknowledge yourself as a physical being here to acknowledge reality, you must fall in love with your reality, and then in that love dissolve into the greater view that you always were. Be swift in your approach. And I have seen many people smoke, and what I have seen simply by the nature of smoke in regards to how it presents itself is that smoke is very swift in its disappearance, in the sense that it shows itself before you can really see it. And what that means is from the moment that we are present through many intensities of existential attention and also awarenesses to change. There are constant fluxes. People talk about past lives, and I say past lives, every idea that you have gets absorbed in a chaos which your order knew it would always have to confront. And that chaos is not an image, and that's why there's no fear. Because if there's nothing there, what are you fearing? And you simply then pay attention. Your intelligence, I personally feel, is relevant to your attitude in regards to how your self-awareness is expanding. And when I say expanding, it feels expanding at first, but then it dissolves into a knowing. And so when expansion dissolves into knowing, there are no questions that need to be asked. But in a sense, if there were, all would be answered. You see, we can take simple things and create great meanings of the world around us. Me and you are taking a language, and we are describing the cosmos, or who we are, or the nature of our being. And so we are ants wandering of the many boots that come and go, and at the same time recognizing that what is the true nature? In other words, in every movie or show that you have seen, that there has been a hero and villain, what is something that both the hero and villain would stop and look at, to just for a second acknowledge? It would be something beyond the values they can understand. And so that is why we have the beauty of excitement in our lives, the beauty of we don't know what's going to happen, but let us go into that. And so the human being is very playful in the sense that it does things it doesn't understand and continues to survive well. The reason we need to be gentle is that we need to see the existential life process that we are. And when we look at that, we do not ignore it or try to create it in any other way. Look at yourself in the mirror. That is you. That's your physical body. That's who you are. Acknowledge it, be comfortable with it, and know that this is your first temple, if you are one of those people who appreciates those structures. Your first temple is your body. And so you need to realize that you don't want anything, for example, dirty or someone with muddy boots to come into the temple. You want to be very mindful and zen about it and very present, and that is why you flow naturally. Simply because you're present to be present. Many people can become enlightened by simply knowing that they are not the idea, but the awareness to the idea. And what I mean by that is that for a second, touch your hand, touch your body, and recognize that the beauty of that sensation is present, but it's also present in an awareness in the moment. You exist now. And so through this being, you have come to be human. Do you recognize this? And so when there's an unspeakable and unexplainable sense of intelligence that chaotically sprouts the order of a new plant, of a new design, we see that there never were segments, but simply an acceptance to create many meanings. In a place that could never be placed. You know, there are many times where you try to explain an existential knowing or something that you've had a very actually articulate and very intelligent experience of, but you do not have the words for. And so you see the only way you can communicate it is by bringing words from both sides. So in other words, a plane has two wings, and we see that I cannot just talk about the good without talk about the bad. And what I want to do is not to just say one of them is right and the other is, taboo or whatnot. I want to say that I, as a human being, must be able to not just confront any view, any idea, but to be a presence that knows itself as naturally as the earth turns and orbit around themselves. Many of our segments will dissolve. As consciousness evolves, greater bodies will be discovered. It's already being found. And you will recognize that once you become more collective in how you're exploring your individuality, you are letting go of things because you're actually receiving more. And what I mean by that is that simply the reason the flows immediately come to you or something happens to you is because for a second you have found such beautiful trust in life that there has been no reason for a lag in manifestation. Your life is art, and you are the artist. And when you, the artist, walk, when you breathe, when you think, if you think you are a thinker, in areas where man's mind goes blank, there's always an opportunity for novelty to express itself. Your hands were made to hold many things. And as our self-communication teaches us the teaching that we are, the human being's ability to confront other senses of intelligence will give it the ability to receive insight from other aspects of the cosmos. In other words, when Gaia begins thinking and many of her, let's say, neurons or whatnot, human beings begin to align and in a sense become very beautiful natural expressions of their mere presence, then it's as if the Gaia is more capable to communicate in intelligent ways to other sectors of the universe. You will see that the beauty of communication, if I am talking to you, trust me, even planets can be perceived to be found talking in this relationship. Man's ability in regards to how he acknowledges his imagination is that regardless of what he calls conscious or unconscious, he has different ranges and intensities of ability in each moment of consideration. However, it also has a very unspeakable and very hard to, in a sense, comment on aspect of observance that is omniscient and omnipresent and eternal. So once you see that you are connected to all those things that you felt were creating disconnection, you breathe, and all life breathes with you. And remember, breathe with all life. Much blessings and namaste.